start at the far end of the table, work our way around, and come down this way. So Frank?
Tom, your opponent is well-known, well-financed, supported by the politically connected, financially powerful business interests, and not about to give up millions of dollars of profits running county projects like sidewalks and transportation. How's your campaign going against such an opponent?
It is a steep uphill journey. I believe that if when I first took a look at it, I tried to back away from the emotion of it and go, what are my odds? What am I up against? And then I kind of looked at it, and that's the way I do things. I lay it all out and go, okay, mathematically, what are my odds? I got all my details. I did research on how much campaigns cost, how much she spent on her last campaign, how much others, and then I laid it all out of me, and I thought, you know what? I don't even care. I don't care what the odds are. I'm going to do it. But the point is that right now, to me, she'll get $2,700 donations from businesses that just left, right, up the middle, dozens of them. To me, I can get more out of a $50 donation from a private citizen than she's going to get out of that $2,700 from a business. I'm not kidding. Because I'm going to run my campaign like I run my life and like I would run the county if I'm on the board. I'm a penny pincher. I'm going to get the best value out of every dollar. And the first check that I received in the mail, I have to tell you, I went to my mailbox, and when I realized what it was, I held that check in my hand like it was a little newborn baby. I was emotional. I thought, this is a person who wrote a check to me. They earned this money. You do not know the level of responsibility I will take on getting as much out of that dollar as I can. It was a little bit worth a dollar.
Yes, James.
Tom, quick question.
Sure.
You had one of the commissioners, one of the current commissioners, who faced a similar situation last year and was prevailed. So, what lessons do you take from that? Is there anything that
yes,
not necessarily about current actions, but about actions during the campaign? So.
well, I tell you, there were a few things I learned from that, and some of those are not pretty lessons. To cross this threshold to being a taxpayer advocate, to running for office, I saw some things in that campaign where these negative mailers came out, and I had to think, that's going to happen to me, because the big money is going to be spent against me. And that again, where I had to just go, you know what, I was going to suck it up. I don't care. Bring it on. Do that type of negative campaigning. I made a pledge to myself and my family. That's the first iteration of my campaign committee. Was my son and my two daughters. Let me back up for a moment, because that's really the moment I decided to do this. Is one of the things I had to really lay myself out there for one time was when I filed an ethics complaint on the process, on Timothy for the process that he went behind the county attorney when he signed the Braves deal. He did it illegally. And there was a point where I had all my arguments ready, because there was two things that I had to bring in front of the ethics committee. One was, you hired an attorney. You're not supposed to do that. You hired an attorney on behalf of the county. Really, you hired an attorney on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce. Okay, but you're spending county money to do it. And then the other thing is, he refused, even to this day, to answer my open records request. All right. And I had to go up before the ethics board, make an argument, and that had to be one of the more difficult things I've ever done. I had made a promise. You know what? It wasn't even really a promise. I made a statement. I said, if he will publicly apologize for doing this, I will withdraw the ethics complaint. And as prepared as I was, I had said, I need to keep my word. I'm not going to lie. My kids knew what I said. My kids knew I said I would drop it if he apologized. He issued a pseudo-apology. It's an apology. He did the best he could. Okay? And I had to go before the ethics board, and I had to say, look, I've already said I'm going to drop this. The ethics board told me, look, here's the only real way to drop it, is let it go all the way through the end, let it go to the hearing, and then drop it in front of the board. And I did that, and it made me uncomfortable, because I had fought hard to get to that point, but I'm a man of my word, and I kept my word. And after it was over, my kids took me out to eat, and my daughter was the first one. She looked at me and she said, Dad, I just don't think you know how proud we are of you. And like I said, I've told you some of my story, the things that motivate me. That's one of those things I'll never forget. And I thought, well, if you thought that was gonna, if you're telling me that you're proud of me, if you thought it was gonna stop me, you're wrong. It's gonna vote me forward. But I also learned that from that campaign is it doesn't take money to go knock on doors. And I will be doing that. I will be doing that in my district. I will never turn down an invitation to debate or speak. And I think that's the only way that I have that can catch me up.
Okay, just a quick
Sure.
remark, I was at that hearing, and as a pro se advocate, I will say you pretty much slaughtered your rather distinguished opponents. Good job, so.
The first hearing where they decided this is real and it's going to go on to the process, I was proud of that moment. I know no lawyer, just a dumb guy.
Jerry, did you have your hand up?
Yeah. Tom, I wanted to ask you a question. I've been to some of these meetings at I don't understand some of this stuff like you do. I keep hearing this $23 million for some green space we owe or something. What is that? I don't really understand what that is. And question number one, and number two, can you enumerate 2 or 3 things where you can cut $2 or $3 million out of the budget?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because I like seeing, I've been in business a long time, and I have cut a lot of budgets.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard the county or the federal government come up with anything they're cutting.
Right. Right. Yeah, I'll give you examples of of how they swing and miss, like I did when I was a 9-year-old baseball player, at cutting the budget as well. And I think what you're talking about, referring to, is one of the cornerstones of Mike Boyce's campaign a couple of years ago. I believe the way he said it was, we can vote on a $40 million park bond, but we can't vote on a $400 million stadium. And that the parks bond was a broken promise. They put the parks bond in front of the voters. The voters voted overwhelmingly, spend my money on parks. I overwhelmingly approve, spend my money on parks. The board decided that because there was a shift in the economy, which that wasn't on the ballot, the ballot didn't say if there's not a shift in the economy, buy these parks. And the Board of Commissioners did not follow through on that bond vote. They simply ignored it. They said, no, okay, we're just not going to do it now. And then when it came time to purchase the stadium, they said, we're afraid that won't pass a bond vote, and so we're just going to do it. So by doing those two things in combination, they really took away our right to make those decisions. They took away our ability to make the decisions. We voted on something, didn't get done. Then they did what they wanted without putting it in front of us. And now, because so much time has passed, 15 years ago we could have bought $40 million worth of parkland. Now, land is a lot more expensive, and a lot of the land is gone. It's been developed, and so we can't buy the same land now that we could have back then if we had initiated that, not we followed through with that bond. And then, I'm sorry, follow up on the expenditures. One of the recent cuts that was almost laughable was, okay, we're going to close this office, okay, and that's going to cut a certain number of employees, and it's going to cut our spending on personnel. All right? Then I found out later that the move, this was kind of cutting in East Cobb, cutting a satellite office where you could get some things done administratively. That really you can do online. You can do all online now. But so we made these cuts, but the net result of the cuts was we added 2 employees. Because we had to move them from one place to another, and now their responsibilities were a little bit different, and they answer to a different person, and they're going to a different building for work. I got to fill this gap, and I got to fill this gap now. And so the net result of the savings was to add 2 employees. You know what? That's just what government does if you let it. Okay? To think about this. We've all heard this from a federal standpoint, because a cut is when you change something from going up 20% to going up 18%. Okay, that's a cut in spending. And the only way to really cut is to go back to the first pillar of my campaign and say, is this the best use of taxpayer dollars and look at every line on every budget. Because we're spending things that have nothing to do with quality service at a reasonable cost. Giving money to charities has nothing to do with that. Giving money to the Braves has nothing to do with that. So that's where you go. Is every line, you ask yourself that question. And you'll hear it a lot. If I'm elected, I'll ask it out loud.
Leroy, excuse me, I'm gonna have to put your wife first. In order, Leroy. I know you have your hand up longer, but
Ladies first.
Okay, so question is, it's almost like as I was listening to you, it's almost like you're Steve Bannon, you know? And I'm wondering,
I'm not insulted.
I mean, you certainly have our vote, and we're gonna have a meet and greet at our house, but I'm wondering if you're more effective being a juggernaut outside of it, because you've been so effective there, than trying to get this inertia that's already there to move, because we worked on somebody else's campaign, well, I'll say who that is, and it's like, what? Everything that you said you were gonna do, you turned into a Democrat, and what now? So how are you going to be able to move what you want to do with who you are?
That's a great question. That's actually part of my story, is because I am proud of what I'm able to do from the outside. But you know what? I'm very limited. I was more limited in the beginning, because when I first started asking for records and documentation, I was I'm in sales, so I use this phrase when someone turns down my attempt to sell them something. When I first went to the county to say, I need these records, I was Heisman. You know what that is? No, you can't have them. You can't have those records. Those are confidential, they're work product, et cetera, et cetera. So when I was doing my research, all the way through SPLOST, ME, all the things I do, I had to challenge the county 5 times. And I went to the office of the Georgia Attorney General, not to the AG, but to one of the associates there. And 4 of those 5 times, I won the battle, and they had to give me the records. And through that process, the cost of open records has been lowered, access to open records has been heightened, and now you can go online and make an open records request. And I feel like my activity had a lot to do with that. And the one time that I didn't win, I knew I wasn't going to win. That was after I had filed a lawsuit. No, I was threatening to file a lawsuit, and I wanted to know what they were going to do once I filed it, so I asked for some documentation on what their planned reaction was, and the AG even said, no, you can't have that, that doesn't work right. So I said, okay, I can go up on that one. But, point being, if I'm inside, then I have access to the staff. I have access to the process. I have access to the agenda while it's being written. When the draft of the agenda comes out, I can say, no, this isn't going, rewrite this, bring it to me in a way the taxpayers can understand. Right now, I'll look at expenditure on an agenda. I need a book of translation to even understand what they're talking about, and it wouldn't be the first time I've read an agenda. So that's why I think I can get more done from the inside.
Leroy, it's your turn.
I am personally shocked because it's not often, and I'm sure many of the men in this room can relate to this, think the same way as your wife. Because I was going to ask a question very similar to Christine's, and so I'll ask it again in case you can think of some additional responses to that question. And so my question was going to be, given that you have been so exceptionally successful being an advocate for the taxpayers of Cobb County, what would you be able to do to be equally exceptional in your success as a member of the Board of Commissioners?
I think going back to a point we made a moment ago, that with the number one thing being, how are you spending our money, then being part of the budgeting process as it occurs. And Cobb County has a very funky budgeting process. There's never one time where you can hold the board accountable for their budgeting and spending. Because of the shift, we do this 24 months ahead, we do this 12 months ahead. Wait a minute, aren't you spending too much money on X, Y, and Z? Oh, well, it's too late for that, that's 12 months ago. See, there's never one time where you can say, no, right now, I need to hold you responsible for this budget. Because right, the 2 dates are purposely spread apart. When they vote on whether they're gonna raise the millage rate or keep it the same, and when they vote on the budget. And that budget, I would wanna have a long and hard meeting, with the county comptroller and go, when can we have a budget that actually follows, correct accounting procedures? Because if you're lowballing the top line on purpose, that's not a budget. That's just a document with numbers on it. That's not telling the folks out there the truth. And they have to publish that. They're publishing a bogus document. So what I want to do is I want to take the research that I've done outside, and I'm going to use that same research inside. And it has to go back to when the staff starts this work. We don't see it as public until it's already been created for a year. And I want to see it from day one and be part of I want to be part of the writing of that budget, not reading it after it's too late.
Moving on up, Ron?
Tom, just to follow up on that same line of thinking. A lot of people look at Larry Savage as having done great work on identifying issues with regard to SPLOST. I would argue that nobody in Cobb County has done a better job than you on identifying specific examples of Cobb County using the SPLOST as a slush fund and spending money on items that are not on the SPLOST. Nobody in Cobb County has done a better job than you on that. And so I would just ask you to comment on the idea of, don't we as taxpayers need you on the Board of Commissioners to be the voice for taxpayers on stopping those abuses?
That's actually a very good point, and I'm not really good at tooting my own horn. But what I'm going to go back is the question that you all asked, is that budgets for Cobb County 10 years from now, the foundation of those budgets are going to be written in 1.5 to 2 years from now. Why? Because that's when the next SPLOST list is going to be written. Okay? That's when the person who grabs that SPLOST list and makes it a real SPLOST list is going to make county budgets correct 10 years from now. Because right now, we say slush fund and we mean it kind of in an insulting way, etc. In the current SPLOST, there's literally, the title of it might as well be slush fund. There's a $50 million fund that isn't pinned to any one project. Okay? It's right there. And so, I'll give you an example. What do we do with that $50 million fund? Well, we've got a list of projects, and those projects total $250 million. And they say, we're going to make some of these-ish things right here. This transportation project, we're going to spend some of that $50 million if the state will spend more than us, or if the federal government will spend more than us. And what happens is, the federal government, believe me, as I did my research on Department of Transportation spending, the federal government is begging Cobb County to spend our federal taxpayers. They are crying themselves to sleep at night, hoping that Cobb County spends more federal money all the time. I've read the emails. And when Cobb County says, I'm not so sure we need to spend that, the federal government goes, oh yeah, you need to spend it because it's here. And we want it to be here next time. All right? An example, out of that $50 million slush fund, we taxpayers approved $5 million for an exit ramp on Acres Mill. We approved it. Now, we approved it. I was against that. I think that project should have not been on the SPLOST. It should be voted without in public because it greatly benefits the Cumberland CID, which is the most powerful entity in Cobb County. By far. The Board of Commissioners, the legal governing entity in Cobb County, is not even a close third behind the Cumberland CID and the Chamber of Commerce. All right? And so, here's my point, is we approved $5 million for that Acres Mill Bridge. Like it or not, we did. It's part of that big package. We can't line item veto, so we approved it, right? But the Board of Commissioners says, it's going to cost more than that. And so instead of $5 million, we're going to spend $15 million. It's not going to be in the paper. Nobody's gonna announce it, nobody's gonna talk about it. We're just gonna quietly approve $15 million instead of $5 million on that project. Now, so that's $10 million that's missing from the SPLOST. So where did we take it from? Right now, I spoke to the director of the Department of Transportation. You know what he's not allowed to spend money on right now? Potholes and repaving. Because the money's gone. The money is building this pretty ramp that goes right to Suntrust Park. All right, that's, we spend money on transportation to move people to the front doors of businesses. Right now, whether you agree with having Cobb Link, formerly CCT, whether you agree with it or not, it's here and it's here to stay. All right? Now, I've had a lot of emotional conversations with people about we shouldn't even have public transportation, we should have more or whatever, but here's the point. Right now, a Cobb Link, a CCCT bus, can take you right to the front door of JCPenney. Right to the front door. Let you off. No, they don't get out of the bus and open the door for you, but they take you right to the front door of JCPenney so you can go shopping. All right? Now, what they don't do is, the 10th largest employer in Cobb County has 700 hourly employees, and a lot of them rely on public transportation to get to work. Tip Top Poultry in District 3. Now, guess who doesn't have a bus going to them? Now, I'm not in favor of this business needs a bus going to them. Remember, nobody's going to go shop at Tip Top Poultry, so the Chamber of Commerce or the CCID doesn't really care if a bus goes there. They're not going to go shop there. And so there's 700 people, not all of them, but I noticed when I was out and about doing some of my door knocking about 3 weeks ago, I noticed 2 people running across Cobb Parkway. No sidewalk, no crosswalk, nothing. And remember, I'm a researcher. So I said, okay, what time is it? I wrote down the time, I wrote down the weekend. I came back the next day, I took 2 hours PT off of work, and I sat in my car in the parking lot, and I waited for people to run across Cobb Parkway. And they did, running across Cobb Parkway. And I said, I pulled my car ahead of them, I got out and said, hey guys, where y'all going? Going to work? Over here at Tip Top Poultry. It's a mile away from the bus stop. At that bus stop, there's no sidewalk. At that bus stop, there's no crosswalk. You literally can't legally walk after you get off the bus. The bus stop is there, but you just, I do things legally. You can't cross any street or go anywhere other than stand right there at the bus stop because there is no crosswalk and no sidewalk. And then I talked to the Human Resources Director at Tip Top Poultry. They have 700 hourly employees that work there. They want to have 900, but they can't. But you can go shop at JCPenney.
Vote no on the SPLOST.
Yeah.
And the last time the SPLOST came up, I asked people in this room before a campaign to give money, 0.
Yeah. My personal feeling is so out of whack right now, I could never vote for it if it is this kind of thing. But what I really would like to do is be on that Board of Commissioners so I can make the SPLOST list what it actually legally should be. Right now.
No on the SPLOST.
Yeah, I understand.
Have no SPLOST.
Yeah, I understand your position there. My position is, look at it as it is, because we're going to deal with it for years. And I'll give you another example. We voted for a new public safety headquarters, AKA police headquarters. We voted for it, we passed it, okay? Estimated cost, $100 million, okay? Now, we voted on an expanded training facility for police officers. Now, we don't have the $100 million. Why? SPLOST projects for the Braves were over $90 million. None of them were on the list. Remember, I had to choose one, and not being a lawyer, I had to choose one that I could wrap my hands around. That's why I chose that $58,000 one. So what wouldn't overwhelm me with engineering and so on and so forth, things I don't know about. I knew what $58,000 was. And that's why I picked that one. But there's so many more. And so now, instead of building a new public safety headquarters, we're looking for a used building to move them into.
Moving around, Jim?
Quick comment on this campaign. We all know that politics is a very sordid business, but it affects everybody's life, whether you care about politics or not. my opinion, Tom is a citizen politician. There's a difference between a politician.
Write that down.
There is a difference, and we need more people like Tom, so they can look after our interests. Now, I cannot vote for Tom because I live in Atwater and Rutherford is my county commissioner. But it doesn't mean I cannot help his campaign. Because the decision that he's gonna make as a Cobb County member of the board is gonna affect me as well.
Right.
So when I ask my fellow members here, think about it and consider helping his.
And I am not, my opponent, I'm not insulting her when I say this, I'm just describing her career. She's a lobbyist. So that her background is getting money from the government or getting money from another business for the business he represents. That's her background. So when you're making decisions, you always go to your experience. You go to where, you're comfortable. I'm comfortable being a taxpayer advocate. And I won't stop being a taxpayer advocate after I'm elected. Yeah.
I mean, Paul,
Sorry, Paul.
Well, at least from there, you can see the
That's-
question coming.
There you go. I can back up a little more if I have to. Or no.
Your business again was what?
I sell software to restaurants.
Software, okay, so you're in business and you understand corporate structure. You should have a basic understanding of contract law and all the accoutrements. You may never have thought about it in this term before, but the day you turn the age of 18, the age of legal majority, same applies to everyone sitting here today.
That was about 6 years ago, yeah.
Right. You took a seat on the board of directors of two of the largest corporations in the world, the state of Georgia and the United States of America, and it seems that you are one of the few board of director members who has taken the time to take that public duty seriously, and I will have to commend you for it. With that thought in mind, I have a question, and it gets back to the Braves situation. The Braves are owned by a very large corporation, and I think the last time I checked, that corporation had a economic value of $17 billion.
Right.
So here's my question. In order to get the taxpayers of Cobb County to approve a bond, why could not Cobb County say to that corporation, here is the amount that we anticipate this project taking in bond revenue, and you're going to issue preferred callable shares for the duration of the bond to offset the expense of the taxpayers coming up with the money up front? What would have been wrong with that, besides the state of Georgia not allowing it?
Well, what we're told is, if we had done something logical, then we wouldn't have got the stadium.
You're talking government now.
Yeah, that's right, yeah, that's what we were told. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there are some things you're talking about that I'm not familiar with when it comes to specific types of bonds. Here's what I do know. I use common sense. If you're going to make me decide on something before I have a chance to see all the facts, then I'm going to walk away from the deal. I'm going to walk away from any deal. And this whole thing about if we didn't do it right then someone else would have got it, more power to them. Because I'm going to use a smaller example with the stadium. That stadium, if it was going to be in Cobb County, it had to go exactly where it went. Okay, that didn't come about overnight. The Chamber of Commerce was working on it for months before it was ever announced. They were working on it behind the scenes. Remember, those were those emails that I never got. okay? It wasn't a surprise to anyone. This was all being worked on behind the scenes. It was only a surprise to the rest of the board of commissioners. But the point is that there's a little background there. I'll go over it briefly. Let me check my time. I've just got a few minutes. But the Braves knew exactly what they were doing because they had just gotten burned. I did research on this. Mike Plant didn't just show up in Atlanta, and this was his first time he's tried to build a stadium with public money. I can't remember if it was South Carolina or North Carolina, but they were building a minor league stadium, and Mike Plant was in charge. And it happened a year and a half before the Braves deal here. And it went to a bond, and it lost overwhelmingly. And they took that playbook, and they said, never again. Never again will we get into a discussion about, is it worth it? Never again will we get into a discussion about, can I vote on it? Never. It's not going to happen. And they took it to these commissioners, and they said, no, do it. What would you do if somebody tried to, what if I was selling you software? And I said, look, you have to write me a check today, and I've only got 45 minutes to explain it to you. I don't have time for your questions. You have to buy it today, or I'm going to sell it to somebody else. You would never buy that from me, ever. What I do for a living, I present a product, and I think that what I sell is worth buying. I'm passionate about that too. And I think it's worth buying. But if it isn't worth it to the buyer, I move on to the next person. And that, you know, and we were presented with this too good to be true. And it was too good to be true. Because we didn't know all the hidden costs. We didn't know about the transportation support. So we had to make a decision right away. Here's another thing. Does everybody know where Tyler Perry Airport is? Tyler Perry Airport is in Cobb County, you know, right? Because we paid for, we gave him money. Now, did we give him money to move his jet there? Nope. Think about this for a minute. If you're Tyler Perry and you have all those hundreds of millions of dollars, are you going to limit your travel to the United States? No, you're not. Are you going to buy a smaller plane? No, you're not. Cobb County has the only runway long enough for his jet. Cobb County is the only international airport of that size in metro Atlanta. He literally couldn't take his jet anywhere else. But yet we got talked into subsidizing just because someone asked. And that's really kind of the voice with the Braves. The Braves, according to reports that was at the MDJ over the weekend, very profitable now that they're in SunTrust Park. Right? They would have been profitable moving there even if they paid for their own stadium. All right? They would have been profitable, and we would have been better off if maybe we gave 1/8 of what we gave to the effort. Okay? But the problem is, any negotiation ends based on where it starts. Any negotiation is whittling away strengths and weaknesses, person to person, based on where you started. Where did we start with the Braves negotiation? We started with a very smart, experienced lawyer on the Braves side, paid by the Braves. And we started with a very smart, experienced lawyer on the county side, paid for by the Braves.
Tom, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.